to talk about the NFC East, and we're going to go over the 4 teams, which they're an interesting setup.
Well, it was crazy because, like this year in the draft, Cowboys had the 10th overall pick. The Giants had the 11th. The Eagles moved back. They traded back with Miami from 6 to 12. So you had in-division guys right there between 10, 11, 12. And then on top of that, to make it even crazier, you had the Eagles trade to move up to 10 with the Cowboys, an in-division trade, which hardly ever happens. But they wanted to skip ahead of the Giants to get their pick. And it's pretty wild, man. It was a pretty fun, little thing, dynamic, which you don't see that often.
To sum up, in summation, the NFC East a year ago, 2 years ago, was kind of just the biggest joke of the NFL.
Well, even last year, really.
most of last year it was. And then all of a sudden, mid-season, things started to change a little bit. You started seeing some winds of change with some players, with some teams. Some teams that were looking, that people thought maybe be, like the Dallas Cowboys, that were looking pretty good. But
early on.
But really, really, they were oh, they're just barely losing, and then they lost a bunch. They went in one direction. Dak Prescott goes down. Ezekiel Elliott has kind of a rough year. There's no offensive line. There's no secondary. It's just a mess. Meanwhile, teams like the Eagles, who Jalen Hurts pops up. Hurts is viable in helping people win their fantasy, and the Eagles win games. The Giants, seem like they're doing some good stuff in the drafts, and now they have a lot of pieces. Picked up Kenny Golladay, and have improved.
And they look better as the year went on. I love the mindset that they have there, because they could have just, after Saquon went down, after having that schedule, they had the 4 best defenses in the league starting out the season. They could have just folded in and said, we're done. But man, they kept fighting. They kept trying to win games, and you got to love that.
Sal, I like Daniel Jones. I think people generally want to see him succeed for some reason. And he's got a good arm. Sometimes he looks a little rushed, but there are times that you look at him and you're like, man, this guy got to 24 miles per hour. He was outrunning Lamar Jackson until he tripped over his own 2 feet. It's the bad news bears is what, they're the bad news bears, but only with the Giants, or they're the little Giants. There you go.
The movie.
And then there is the Washington football team. All right.
Yes.
The Washington football team, which is the perfect team to describe what the transition that the NFC East sort of went through. Because they were the worst team in the NFL. They were the laughing stock. They had no offensive weapons. They had some defense, but they weren't good. It was like Terry McLaurin, but no one to throw it to him. And who's going to be the running back on this team? Can anybody do it? Who's this quarterback that's trying to play tight end? We have your quarterback is basically getting fired 7 or 8 games into the season, and then he's being replaced by a guy with no leg. And with Alex Smith, which, by the way, that's a feel-good story.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what they were able to do, that franchise, they revamped everything. They don't even have a name. They're just the Washington football team.
They don't even have a name.
They don't even have a name right now. But man, they got the best coach for the job, Ron Rivera, who was available. You bring him in, and you want to talk about a guy that's going to bring a culture change to there. And you saw that with this last season. They ended up coming back, winning the division, which I know it was not a great division to win, but they actually came out. They won the division. They were anchored by their defense. Drafting a guy like Chase Young was absolutely amazing for them. But they had a culture change. They everything worked for them. I like Ron Rivera. I like what he was doing in Carolina. I just think that they were in a win now mode, and so they got rid of him. But and not only that, you were talking about feel good story all around. Alex Smith. Then you had Ron Rivera was dealing with cancer through most of that season, and to see those guys rally and play for a guy like him. Not to mention, then you got the Alex Smith part of it coming in. Man, it was absolutely amazing to watch. If you're a Washington football team fan, you gotta love what's going on. You gotta like what's from. You went from being so dark and everything that's going on with the GM and coaches and stuff to now where you're at. You gotta love it. You gotta be encouraged.
So the NFC East is a much improved league, as Brady and I were just talking about. Much improved division, I should say. The Washington football team. How do you feel about their fantasy relevance? Who would you grab? Tell me about their prospects, Danny.
If I'm drafting anyone from Washington for my fantasy league, I am looking at Fitzpatrick because he is a gunslinger. You gotta love the Conor McGregor of the National Football League. And he's going to throw it. He's going to get you yards. He's going to get you touchdowns. He's got the attitude. He's got the pizzazz to make you want to love him. And here's the other thing. You'll get him cheap. You're not going to have to pick him up in the first couple rounds because other people are going to be chasing after Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. You're going to get him cheap. So you're not wasting a high-end draft pick with him. And then you got McLaurin. He is fantasy gold, and I was never even sold on him. But like I kept bashing him, and it's like every year he just keeps proving me wrong. And I expect him to do well this year, and hopefully he doesn't prove me wrong this year because then I'll look stupid.
A couple of other quality receivers to go along with that in this crew, but I don't think anybody really of note in terms of fantasy relevance at this time. Nobody I'd grab as a sleeper at this point. I will say that they have some interesting. They have an interesting running back in Antonio Gibson that people feel different things about. What do you think about him?
Look, I will tell you this: I had picked up Gibson on the waiver wire last year in one of my leagues, and the weeks that I put him on the bench, he got 30 to 40 points. The weeks I played him, he got 10. So it's one of those things. There is a boom and bust with that boy. And I think this year he's going to be getting the ball more. He'll probably be the mainstay with that team as far as running backs go. And I think he's going to average anywhere from 12 to 15 points a week and having the boom of hitting 30 here and there. To me, he is an RB2 at best, but he's one of those things. I mean, I would take him.
Gotcha. You think it's a good compliment? Gotcha. You think he's a good compliment because he can win games for you when he goes off. But he's not the guy. He's not a Derrick Henry that's going to get between 13 and 20 points a game no matter what. He's going to get 1 week he might get 5, another week he might get 35.
Now, I'm going to say this right now. Probably one of the most scariest defenses in the NFL is Washington. Mm-hmm. That defense is the whole reason they made it to the playoffs. They played in a horrible, horrible division last year. And I can tell you this right now. The NFC East is going to be a lot better this year than it was last year. I think Dallas realized their problems. I think Washington's realized their problems. Philly's realized their problems, and the Giants have realized their problems. All 4 teams are going to improve, but that Washington defense is still going to be scary. They are going to be one of the top-tier defenses this year. They should be one of the first. They should be either first or second as far as defenses coming off in fantasy leagues.
I think it's a huge statement. I think they were scary good last season. I actually grabbed them in a few leagues early on because I knew they weren't going to get drafted when people didn't expect it. I was like, you know what, I got a feeling about it. And Chase Young, I mean, what are you going to say? Game changer, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he is like Aaron Donald. I mean, this kid has a phenomenal work ethic. I mean,
leadership.
Look what they did against Cincinnati. I mean, they almost ended Joe Burrow's career. I mean, they almost killed the very first draft pick of last year.
Yeah, that's called anger. That's what happens. Chase Young should have gotten number 1. That's what should have happened, but he made him pay.
I mean,
billions.
For the rest of Joe Burrow's life, he's going to have a scar to remind him how good that defensive line is in Washington.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, I was saying this to Brady off camera at one point. I think that if not for a couple of things, Washington would have taken out Tampa Bay in the playoffs this year. They could have hit a Super Bowl this year, or in 2020, they could have won a Super Bowl for the 2020 season. I think that they have an improved quarterback. They at least have consistent quarterback with good leadership skills and a decent arm. I think that McLaurin, dog him if you want, but he's going to pick his one guy. If it's McLaurin's a wide receiver 1, maybe a low-end wide receiver 1, but a wide receiver 1 nonetheless. And that stack will be an inexpensive stack to get compared to some of the other ones. So I think they're sneaky good with some fantasy viable relevance. And I'm excited about the Washington. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm excited about the Washington football team to follow them next season. I hope that what I really want them to do is find a nickname.
I'm going to tell you guys something right now. I love Rivera as a coach. And there's something that a lot of people don't agree with as far as what they did in their draft. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't draft them high in your fantasy leagues. Get them with your last pick if need be. John Bates, tight end out of Boise State. I got a feeling this boy is going to fit into that system pretty well. And I got a feeling he's going to be fantasy relevant. Heed my warning, boys. You want a trophy like I got right here. Look at Bates. You'll get him cheap in the late rounds. He'll get you some points.
Sneaky take right there. That is very useful. And it's actually a very low cost pick for you, like Danny said. So it's a great late round flyer. If it turns into because we're talking Logan Thomas, but Logan Thomas, we wonder, his age is going up. I think that they're going to move on from him. I think that's a reasonably viable, interesting option. So keeping on the NFC East, we have the New York Giants. The New York Giants have had a rough couple of years. Saquon Barkley been consistently injured. We also have basically a non-existent defense, a non-existent offensive line. Previously, not the greatest wide receiver core. Not bad per se, but just nobody that can really stand out. No back blocking. Evan Ingram's always injured. But let's go ahead and touch on this consistently injured, consistently beat up, consistently overwhelmed team and tell me how you feel that they could be in 2021. Are they going to be improved? Are they going to be able to stay healthy? There's a lot of questions already.
When it comes down to health, that's always a crapshoot when it comes down to the NFL, whether you're just watching it and supporting your team or playing fantasy. But I will say this, I do expect a lot out of this team this year. The defense,
when you say a lot, what does that mean? Like a playoff seed or just better than they were?
I know they'll be better than what they were with the possibility of a playoff.
That's big.
And the thing
that would have to be a while. You don't think they're going to be able to beat Washington?
I think they'll split the series with Washington this year in the regular season.
Wow.
And it's one of those things. Depending on what Washington's offense can do versus the Giants staying healthy, because you got to remember, the Giants could have gone to the playoffs over Washington if Philly did not play Carson Wentz. Remember, Philly laid down in a game that they could have won. So the Giants defense is starting to remind me a lot of the Baltimore Ravens from the early 2000s when they were going to the Super Bowl. These guys are like brothers. They know, hey, I got your back, you got my back. Let's go screw these guys up. Now, on offense, to me, Saquon having a full year off to rehab, get himself back into shape, which, I mean, the quads are always been there. I think Saquon's going to have one of his best years ever in the NFL. Then you're also looking at the situation of Daniel Jones is going to have a little bit more time to throw the ball since they did improve their offensive line, and he has more weapons to throw to. Golladay is a boom or bust player, but as long as Daniel Jones can stand up in that pocket to throw the ball down, it's going to be beautiful. And now that they are looking to have Saquon back, that means defenses are going to be, scheming to play against Saquon and not Daniel Jones and those wide receivers and Golladay, Slayton, and oh God, I'm going blank here.
Golladay, Slayton, and Sterling Shepard is probably going to be your other guy.
Now, when I look at their wide receivers, Golladay and Slayton are the two that I am sold on. Golladay, I look at a low end or wide receiver 1, definitely a high end wide receiver 2. Slayton, I'm looking at the wide receiver 2. Shepard, he's been consistent, but I just think with the mouths that are going to be fed out there, he might be at most a flex.
See, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go a little bit different on that. I definitely think Golladay, with his style and the way that Daniel Jones throws the ball, the length, I think that he is going to be it's going to be a sneaky good stack that when they pair well, will win you games. When they pair poorly, they're going to lose you games. But it's one of the ones you can get probably for a lower cost. I like Sterling Shepard, but just like Golladay, just like Saquon Barkley, and just like Evan Ingram, consistently injured, and so it makes me wonder a little bit. I think that he is very similar to Slayton so far, but I don't know. I think he's better at catching I think he has better hands than Slayton does. He doesn't break away the way Slayton does. So I think you have more viability in terms of quick passing, which I think Golladay ends up taking from Shepard. So, but I do think that Sterling Shepard will be the second choice on that team. Either way, I still treat Shepard and Slayton as like a flex option or a bench stash on my team for when I need to get that extra. When another guy is having an off week. I do think Golladay is a high-end wide receiver 2 that you could put in as a wide receiver 1 if you had to, but you're going to need more than just him, because one week he'll get 28 points, the next week he'll get 2. It's a volatile, chaotic offense to me that has a lot of upside and just a lot of who's going to go off. Are there going to be weeks that they just get shut out? I don't know. I don't trust the offense at all after the last couple of seasons, but I don't want to bet against them. And that's the danger of it. I don't want to play against them, and I don't want to have them on my team. So I'm avoiding them. I'm in avoid the Giants like the plague unless they fall to you for cheap. And you're saying otherwise.
Look, I am sold on Saquon coming back. I think he is going to have a year like he's going to have a far better year than his rookie year. And I know how good he was his rookie year. I won a championship with him. He was my first overall draft pick that year. And it's one of those things. He was gold. And I think we're going to see that again this year. Daniel Jones, he's not going to be my first choice for a quarterback, but I have no problem putting him on my bench and doing matchups and putting him in occasionally throughout the season.
I think that's fair.
Golladay, I don't have a problem drafting him, but at the same time, I'm not going to go out of my way to draft him in the first 2 rounds.
No. Right now, he's projected as a 47 pick is what I'm looking at, and it's overall in terms of composite average draft projection. And so most players are going to have him late 4th round. But I don't feel comfortable having him as my wide receiver 1. I feel super comfortable as my wide receiver too. If he's my second guy, I'm pretty happy. But if he's my wide receiver 1, I'm getting a little bit nervous.
And it's one of those things, and that's expected, because the way I look at it is, if you can pick, if he's your wide receiver 1, it's one of those things. You're probably playing in a huge league, or you just didn't know what you were doing.
Or you have a bunch of, or you picked up a Travis Kelce and a couple of running backs, and you just waited too long to get your wide receivers.
And it's one of those things. In this day and age of the NFL, yeah, you want to get a running back early, quarterback. I mean, there's other positions. It's one of those things. There's so much talent out there at the wide receiver position in the NFL right now on every team that he shouldn't be your wide receiver 1.
All right, so we're getting a little off topic, but let's go ahead and touch. I'm going to go by player, and you can say draftable, yes or no, and then I'll ask if they're startable, and you say yes or no. All right, starting out, Daniel Jones, draftable?
Yes.
Startable?
No.
Evan Ingram, draftable?
Not even. No.
All right, so clearly not draftable, clearly not startable, right? Kenny Golladay, draftable? Startable?
Yes.
Gotcha. Saquon Barkley, draftable?
Yes.
Startable?
Yes.
Sterling Shepard, draftable?
No.
Draftable, no. Darius Slayton, draftable?
Yeah. Yes.
Startable? Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. And I feel the same. I'm about equal on Slayton and Sterling Shepard. I don't know. One of those guys will have a decent season, and it could be either one. And I can see your point about Slayton. I can see my point about Shepard, but I don't know. And I think it's simple. I think that's what we got. Let's move on to the next team. All right. So explain to me why Dallas is in the East. I just, they're like not East. Of all the things, like Philadelphia is the East, Washington's the East, New York is in the East. Why is Dallas in the East?
It's one of those things. Back when they were only 3 divisions, Dallas was on that cusp of being in the East, because you got to remember, back then, Atlanta wasn't around, New Orleans wasn't around, Tampa Bay wasn't around. So that's 3 teams that are east of the Mississippi that weren't in the NFL when Dallas became a team. You also got to remember, if you haven't forgotten, the Cardinals used to be in St. Louis, and they were in the East until they went to a 4-division format. So it's one of those things. I mean, do they really need to be in the East? No. The reason they stayed in the East was because of the rivalries with the Giants, the Eagles, and the Washington football team. So it's one of those things. Should they have been moved? Yeah. But at the same time, money is money. You got to protect the shield. And the NFL is all about getting that money off those rivalry games.
So let's talk about some protection with the Cowboys, with the Dallas Cowboys, the Cowboys Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, and the protection and the Dak Prescott fiasco. So what we're going to talk about right now is the NFC or the East, and we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys going along with that, just so you guys know, in case you were wondering. But oh my God, what the hell? How do you feel about the Cowboys? Are they going to be improved? Are they going to be viable in this group of much improved NFC East?
Look, they're going to be improved, but the thing is, Jerry Jones, being a senile old man, did not listen to our videos of me talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and he went the complete opposite way of what he should have done. And when I say that, it's the defense needed work. The defense was atrocious last year. Right. And that's what they worked on in their draft. They went after the defense. Their defense will be improved. It won't be a top tier defense, because you got a bunch of rookies that got to learn how to play in the NFL.
Right.
But your two highest paid players are Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. The offensive line was atrocious last year. This is the first time in a long time that we've seen a bad offensive line in Dallas. And Zeke's production was horrible, probably the worst year he's had in the NFL. Dak Prescott almost lost his foot because he was running for his life. Now, granted, when he broke it, it was way away from the offensive line, but your quarterback shouldn't be running around as much as he was. So for you to have all this money tied up in two players on offense that need production to win and need protection to do that production,
right?
And you did nothing to help them. You have set up that offense for failure. Would I draft Dak Prescott? Yeah, I'd draft him. He's going to put up decent numbers.
Okay.
But it's going to be just like Wilson in Seattle. It's going to be hard to get those numbers up there while you're laying on your back. It is fact of the matter. Offensive linemen and defensive linemen are so underrated in the NFL and by the fans because they're not flashy enough. They're not scoring touchdowns. But this is how you win championships.
We were discussing the Washington football team earlier, and we talked about how they built their defensive and offensive line, and they built the grit positions first, and they look great right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Dallas Cowboys, who they a bit of glamour. They're all trying to do glamour. They got the flashy running back, the flashy wide receivers, flashy quarterback, and then they have nothing at all. And they end up getting their butts kicked, and they still put up points. Yeah, that's great. It's great to put up 40 points a game unless someone's scoring 41 on you. And that's the whole thing.
And here's the thing is Dallas would have been far worse last year if the Atlanta Falcons knew how to recover an onside kick and knew the rules of the game. I mean, seriously, are they going to be improved this year? Yeah. They're probably going to go 8-9, maybe 9-8 at best. Why? Because Jerry Jones has forgot how to build a winning team. He is all about the flashy quarterback and flashy running back, and they're great. I love them. I would have both of them. Hell, I even got one of them in my keeper league. But the fact of the matter is, Jerry Jones knew back in the 90s when he had Jimmy Johnson there, you need to have an offensive line to be competitive in the NFL and look at a Super Bowl. And the NFL has changed in the last few years with, the way the game's going and the styles being played, but it still comes down to the same principle. You need an offensive line. And what's going to end up happening is the Cowboys are going to struggle. They're going to be a 500 team at best. And, Jimmy's going to be like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on here. Jones, dude, seriously, look at what's going on in front of you. You know how to win. Do it.
All right, so let's break down by position real quick, and then we'll move forward. Quarterback, how draftable is he? Top 5 quarterback? He's coming off an injury, which I know that makes you a little more trepidatious. But if you saw him laying around, who would you draft before him? Who would you draft after him?
I would draft
Russell Wilson, let's say.
I would draft Wilson after Dak.
Okay. That's a very telling statement. Let's do another one. What about Aaron Jones?
I would honestly consider
Aaron Rodgers. I mean, so sorry. I apologize.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers.
Wait, what am I thinking?
That's not even a question. Aaron Rodgers isn't even going to play this year.
What did I say? Aaron Jones. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no. Aaron Rodgers. Is that even then let me go to a different one. Give me a second. So you got their Mahomes, which is going to be an obvious one. You got your Josh Allen. You got your you got a handful of guys that are pretty good. Lamar Jackson right now. Okay.
I would actually take Dak over Lamar Jackson. I'm not sold on Lamar's ability to get the ball deep enough downfield. And then on top of that, you have to remember Baltimore gave up their best offensive lineman to Kansas City.
And they did. He had 1 year left on his contract and he wanted out. So I think it was a fair trade, but I don't think it's one that necessarily Baltimore wanted to do. But moving on, so let's go to your running back. You got Tony Pollard, you got Ezekiel Elliott.
Look, I had both of them on my fantasy teams last year.
So a solid handcuff.
It was one of those things. I'm glad I got Pollard. He helped out, he helped out a lot. Mm-hmm. Because Zeke had some bad weeks, really bad weeks. But at the same time, I'm not saying that goes to Zeke's talent. I think it was from two situations there. One, the offensive line being as bad as it was. And then second of all, I think Zeke's like, hey, I got to put the team on my shoulders, and this is the only way we're going to win. And when you're trying too hard in any sport, when you feel like you got to go out there and be the hero, you start making mistakes. And we saw that a lot last year with Zeke. He fumbled the ball more than he ever did before. He just wasn't there. And again, he tried too hard to do too much, and it just did not pay off.
Yeah, we discussed that in a segment last season. And I think I thought, man, I hope he figures it out or else he's going to get hurt. And guess what happened? He didn't figure it out. I do think he's ready for this season. I think he's a different player with Dak behind center. So we got, let's go to their wide receivers, which are going to be Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. And really that's what I'm interested in right now, to be honest. They have more. They have, but those are the two guys that I think could be of value. Where do you put Amari Cooper in terms of fantasy relevance? Is he a wide receiver 1, 2, or flex? Or 3?
He could be a 2, but if he's on my team, he's going in the flex position. If I have him at 2 or 1 on my team, I'm in really bad shape, really bad. So it's one of those things. He's going to get the receptions, but the thing is, he has not lived up to the hype of when he came in there from Las Vegas. And then when you look at Lamb, until he can really prove himself and has that, connection with Dak Prescott, he's going into the flex position. But I'm hoping he can work his way up to wide receiver 2.
Their tight end, I want to see Blake. I had some high hopes for him last season. He looked good when Dak was there. Then he gets hurt as well. Do you think that he steps in? Do you think they're going to be tight end relevant at all?
It's really hard. He had a splash of hope before he got hurt. He really looked good when he was in there. But at the same time, Jarwin it's one of those things. What worries me with him is, one, is he going to be 100% healthy enough coming back? And is that connection with Dak still going to be there?
Cool. All right. I think that's all we need on the Cowboys.
Because you want to avoid their defense.
No, that's it. You want to avoid their defense. I think that what about Greg? Is Greg the leg still there or no?
As far as I know, he is. And it's one of those things. I've followed his career ever since he came into the NFL, and phenomenal kicker, has the leg to get it there. The problem is his back's been an issue for the last few years, and
he's getting up there.
His accuracy and dependability week in and week out has just gone down. So, and it's one of those things. He can't be dependable to make all those kicks anymore like he used to, and then also him just playing every week. The dependability is gone.
Heard. All right, moving on. Back to the NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles. And they had a really ugly looking season last season. They've been ugly and consistently uglier. But they had a flash. They had a flash of brilliance, an unexpected brilliance with Jalen Hurts. Is that a taste of things to come, or is that just, what's going on with the Eagles?
Okay, so this dumpster fire. Best thing they could have done was got rid of Peterson as their head coach. Then they bring in some dummy that signs Joe Flacco and says there's going to be a quarterback competition between Joe Flacco and Jalen Hurts. And I'm like, you're kidding me. You have a kid that you drafted last year that came in there and started winning, that the team supported. The team was visibly upset when he got yanked in the last game of the season for Carson Wentz and taking away the opportunity of the Eagles winning that game. And it's like, for you to say there's a quarterback competition going on with a guy that hasn't done much since he won a Super Bowl, it's been a while. So to me, Philly, get your head out of your butt, or you're going to be the next Houston, Texas franchise.
All right, so let's. I think it's pretty simple what to go with. I think they have work and a lot of places. They have a lot of needs to be a relevant team. But let's talk about where we think they could be. I'm going to assume Jalen Hurts is QB. So let's go ahead and say, where would you draft him? Would you consider drafting him as a top 10 quarterback, in a redraft league, 10 team, or is he even viable in a 2 QB league?
In a 2 quarterback league, I am definitely taking him. And a redraft league where you have one starting quarterback with no super flex or anything like that, would I say he's going to be top 10? There's a chance, but I'm not going to go out and say yes.
Gotcha. So he's someone that maybe you'd pick up as you want to, you grab somebody that's on the cusp, but he's definitely somebody that, like, okay, I've got this guy, but I'm going to go ahead and get this guy too and see which one pops bigger,
It's one of those things. If I have the option to pick the better quarterbacks, I'm going that route. Gotcha. And it's one of those things. Last year, he was fantasy relevant with hardly any weapons. And Devontae Smith coming in there now. Devontae Smith is going to have a great year, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big statement. So you got Devontae Smith. I guess they got Jalen Reagor as well. And I don't know what he's capable of, but I think, who knows?
He's capable of being a disappointment because that's all he's been since he's been in the NFL.
And that brings up, their tight end. And I'm not talking about Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz, you called it last season that he's pretty much done for. I think they'll end up trading him, trying to get some kind of something from somebody. But I do think that Dallas Goedert is the guy at this point. Yeah, as tight end. Is he a viable tight end? Is he someone that you pick up toward the end as someone that you could stuff into a tight end spot somewhere, or do you just kind of avoid him at all costs?
No, I would actually consider picking him up, and it's one of those things. Depending on who you're playing with, if you're playing with guys that understand the value of tight end, you might have to grab them earlier than later. But if you're playing with a bunch of guys like some of my family members, it's okay. You'll get them in the later rounds and you'll be safe.
Right on. Let's add one more. Miles Sanders. He is technically, he will be the 3 down back for another season. Under the assumption that he stays healthy, how do you feel? If you knew for a fact that he was staying healthy, where would you draft him?
He would be my RB2 at best, but
you mean RB2 for all RBs or RB2 for on your team?
On my team, I would feel.
I got to make sure. Got to be clear about that one. Sorry.
Well, it's one of those things. To me, I don't.
So in the Cam Akers range,
I think because Philly has to play him as a 3 down running back because they don't have the talent there, and they're going to have to try to take some of the pressure off of Jalen. I would say fantasy point wise, he's going to probably be slightly above Cam. And the reason I say that, Cam to me has better talent, but I have a feeling the Rams are going to start off slow with him and then ramp him up. So it's one of those things. If you have both of them on there, then you get to decide who you're going to play each week. Beginning of the season, go with Sanders. And then as the season progresses, start punching in Cam and move Sanders down to your flex or back to your bench.
Right on. I think that gives most everything we need on the Phillies. I mean, based on what we've kind of talked about, it kind of flashing back to what we talked about with Brady, what I talked with Brady earlier. We kind of have the football team as first place in this division. That's kind of the general consensus that we feel right now. We kind of feel like the Giants possibly as number 2, and that leaves the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles to round out the bottom part of this. Like it's an interesting division.
It is a very interesting division. I have a feeling it's going to be similar to last year as far as they're all going to be bunched up together with pretty horrible records.
I think I will go as far to say that I think that Washington football team will have a decent record this season. I believe that. I believe that they're the ones that are going to emerge as the clear number 1. But that's based on the fact they built that team and now all of a sudden they have viable offensive options. But I see your point.
I'm actually going to go out on a limb, and I am picking the New York Giants to win the division. I am picking Washington to be right on their heels. And then I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys to finish 3rd with a below 500 record. And then I'm going to put Philly last. And they're probably going to be tied with Dallas as far as record goes, or be a game or 2 behind them.
I will go as far to say this. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win their last game of the season and ruin somebody else's season, and that's going to be their claim to fame. I feel like that's what they're going to win, like 4 games this season, and all 4 are going to ruin some other team in some fashion. That's how I feel. We're going to see how that goes.
And that's what we think. But what do you think? Like and subscribe down below, but leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching the Royal Bumblers, and we will see you after kickoff. Something like that. Later.